Well, hello, this is Dean Tenney. I'm coming to you from my studio here in fabulous Las Vegas. We started this journey of explications as kind of a trial run with the SIE content outline, and we explicated that. And then we did the Series 7 test takers found it of use. And so we continued on to where we're at now, which is explicating the Series 65 and 66 test specifications. This is Series 66. We're closing in on having the explication of the test specifications done, but there's not many target-rich environments on 66 particularly. So you see here, as we start this explication of H, ethical practices and fiduciary obligations, that is target-rich. 14 questions is target-rich. I mean, the challenge on the 66 is there's a lot of onesies and twosies. For example, I don't even have the options lectures in the playlist because it's a couple questions, don't know how many hours you want, and you just did your 7. So anytime we have a good target rich environment, we want to take advantage of that and get all the opportunities, get all the points we're entitled to. So that's why I chose to do this out of order. Usually I just start at the beginning of the content and I just work my way through. But in this case, I thought, maybe I'll skip to the end of the test specifications where we find these 14 performance opportunities. Okay, so compensation, let's start there. Fees, as you know, or should know, investment advisors charge fees. And so, there's certain rules about the fees that an investment advisor charges. Most of us charge a percentage of assets under management, a flat fee. But if an investment advisory firm wants to charge a performance-based fee, well, then there's some rules about that. One thing is NASA, the North American Securities Administrators Association, says we need to disclose of the incentive that an investment advisory firm has to take risk. I'll actually say I could be a little over the top, but more risk with client funds when being compensated with a performance-based compensation, I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? If I'm getting like 2 and 20, for example, 20% of the profits, I'm probably going to be a little more aggressive than I otherwise might be, right? So the rule is for performance-based compensation. On debrief, I haven't, the disclosure is high probability is a test issue, but that would be to have that kind of a compensation schedule. The client, the investment advisory client, would have to have $1 million in assets under management with the investment advisory firm, or 2.1 million in net worth. And again, it makes sense to me that they don't like to get into the numbers too much because, when they do, then they got to, if they ever change it, they got to go back into the QBank and change that as well. And boy, that NASA is notorious for taking forever to update their exams for anything. So, oh well. Another thing we get tested on is fees to third-party solicitors. A third-party solicitor for a federally covered investment advisor. So, if you're going to use this third-party solicitors for federally covered advisors. So if you're a state advisor, you're not going to be able to use third parties as solicitors, but there's disclosures that are necessary about the fees, right? This is typically, by the way, the third-party solicitor is typically a brokerage firm. And that brokerage firm who's acting as a third-party solicitor, I don't know, I think that's a no, is typically a broker-dealer. The broker-dealer doesn't need to register as an investment advisory firm. I'll just put IA. And the associated persons of the broker-dealer who are a third-party solicitor for a federally covered investment advisor do not need to register as investment advisory representatives. Now I'm going to have two brochures, one brochure that tells you about the third party solicitor. So this is a brochure that tells you that the broker dealer has been hired by the federally covered investment advisory. So let's call that solicitor's brochure. And this is a fees for third-party solicitors, two brochures. I don't know why they put no two there. Just put one for the third-party solicitor. And the brochure for the investment advisory firm. Yeah, we want to make sure that the federally covered investment advisor wants to make sure I'm not misrepresenting my relationship as a third-party solicitor, that I work for the investment advisory firm when I don't, when I work for the broker dealer. So there's a separate brochure for the IA. And then the investment advisory firm is going to want the client to acknowledge that they've received those brochures. We're talking about fees right now, and the other big disclosure that's necessary is the client paying more to use a third-party solicitor? So if you're accessing the investment advisory firm to get to the investment advisor, if you're using a third-party solicitor, is it going to cost you more? So is the cost of going through or using, is the cost of the third-party solicitor the same or more than if you access the investment advisory firm without it? I did a lot of this as my broker dealer. And so, I would tell the client, listen, if you actually use my broker dealer who's been hired by the investment advisory firm to find them investors, that's what our broker dealer is doing as a third-party solicitor, you're not paying any more than you would if you went to this federally covered investment advisory directly, because what you're paying them is 2% of assets under management. And, they're just going to pay the broker dealer the 2% that they're going to get for the first year. So you would have paid that 2%, one way or another. So there's no additional cost in using my broker dealer as a third-party solicitor to access that federally covered investment advisor. Now, the answer could have been different. The answer could very well be, well, yeah, there is additional costs if you are using the, third party. I'm charging an extra 1% on top of the 2%, to be, doing whatever I'm doing for that, right? So it doesn't matter really what the answer is as much as it's the disclosure, right? Disclosure is the, best, sunlight is the best disinfectant, right? Commission is very important. So when we're talking commissions on this exam, we are not talking about an investment advisory firm, right? Because commissions are transaction-based compensation. And so if that's what we're talking about, we're either talking about a broker dealer or an insurance company. Broker dealers sell securities and insurance companies sell non-securities products. Don't you love that language? Non-securities products on this exam are insurance. And so the point here is that a lot of us with our 766 are not only agents of an investment advisory firm, but we're also represent a broker dealer. Nothing wrong with that, right? That's your 766. And a lot of us not only are 766, we're also insurance agents of an insurance company. So we have these relationships, and again, it's about disclosure. So, a lot of you are in this, taking a 66. Let's go back up here. Fees are what are for wrap accounts. So a wrap account, and that's why a lot of people are taking a 66. And a wrap account has to have a brochure. And the brochure says what's included, disclose what's included, discloses what is included in the wrap fee and excluded from the rep fee. And so, maybe in the old days, this is the, typical 763. I'll just start with the 763. If I have a 763, all I represent is the broker dealer. And, then we conducted business that way for a long, long time. And if all I have is a 763, I would say to you, the investment advice I give you is free. You're not paying for the investment advice. And sometimes my investment advice is that you buy or sell something. And when you do that, my broker dealer earns a commission. And then I, as an associated person, the broker dealer, I get typically a payout based on that. That's how we did business for a long, long time. And you say, well, Dean, I'm not really comfortable with that business model. I say, why are you not comfortable with that business model? And you say, well, Dean, I don't think it would be, you would tell me not to do something because there'd be no compensation. So now what I can say is, well, did I tell you I'm not only registered with the broker dealer, I'm also registered with the investment advisory firm. And if you like, we can wrap our products and services into a fee. And you'll get a certain number of transactions, whatever that case may be. Now, if I'm going to sell you like insurance, for example, I say you need insurance and you say, Dean, do you know an insurance agent? I say, yeah, that would be me. I can sell you insurance as well. You say, well, is that including the wrap? And you would say yes or no, right? So, when we talk about commissions, we're talking about transaction-based compensation. And if we are both registered to, represent the investment advisory firm, but we also can earn commissions, nothing wrong with that. It needs to be disclosed. And again, it needs to be what's included or excluded. Now, let's talk about those commissions. So in the broker dealer scenario, we got to make sure that everybody who's involved, can we split commissions? So let's put that there. We only can split commissions with properly registered persons. So whether that's securities or whether that's insurance, right? So, if you are licensed to sell insurance and securities and we do a variable annuity, for example, together, then we can share commissions. But if you're not licensed to sell variable annuities, just life insurance, and I'm licensed, I can't split commissions with you because you're not properly registered. I think a variable annuity would be the good scenario there, right? So I also have to disclose to you whether I'm selling you a proprietary product. Again, nothing wrong with that. For example, if I'm a Morgan Stanley broker and I sell you a Morgan Stanley fund, that's a proprietary product. I'd have to disclose that to you. We try and make that as transparent as possible, but maybe it's not called Morgan Stanley Asset Management. Maybe it's called, I don't know, some other XYZ. And don't understand that's an affiliate of Morgan Stanley. So again, proprietary products need to be disclosed. Incentives. NASA and FINRA both, frown on sales contests. But am I receiving any additional incentives for you to get involved in, a certain particular transaction? Like, is there a sales contest? I don't know of many of us that do this any longer, but I say, yeah, I was the top producer yet last year. And, as a commissions, I earned a trip to Geneva or whatever the case may be. If I'm going to allow you to direct transactions to a broker dealer where I'm getting paid, directed transactions are where I'm telling the investment advisory client they're going to be using our broker dealer or a broker dealer. And if it's a broker dealer in which I'm actually affiliated and getting part of those commissions, that would have to be disclosed. My third party, I was directing transactions to Schwab. So if you opened an account at my investment advisory firm, I'd say, listen, I can't steal what I don't touch. I don't have your monies in securities. They're at Schwab. I'm directing your transactions to Schwab, and Schwab is going to pay you a commission. I don't get any part of that. But, could be I'm directing you to Morgan Stanley. I'm also a Morgan Stanley broker, and I'm going to get some of those, whatever it is. And then we tell them, well, we're going to allow you to use some other broker dealer. In my case, I would say no. I said, I don't manage your money unless you put your money at Schwab, because that's the plumbing we use at the investment advisory firm. So if it isn't Schwab, then we're not going to be managing your money for you. But that's what directed transactions are all about. All right, we talked about performance-based fees already. Let's talk about soft dollars. So soft dollar compensation is compensation paid by the broker dealer receiving, didn't put it in different colors. I always comment on this. I don't know if this is your first explication with me, but what I try and do is put my comments in red So, the comments that Dean is making versus what's coming from the document published by NASA, right? So that's a big deal, right? Who cares what Dean says, but we do care what NASA says. All right, so soft dollar compensation is paid by the broker dealer to the investment advisory firm for those directed transactions. The test question is what the broker dealer can't pay for. So as you can imagine, this is a huge business of a lot of firms. So, TD Ameritrade provides execution and custody for a lot of investment advisory firms and their clients. And, this investment advisor saw these guys on television, and they were life insurance guys. And he called them up and he said, listen, I think that, when doing your life insurance, you probably bump into good candidates for money management. Why don't you refer those to my investment advisory firm, and we can work out some kind of payment? They go, well, we can get paid. I said, well, yeah, you're going to have to take a 65. So the investment advisory firm is going to need these guys to go get taken past a 65. So he called his broker dealer that he directs transactions to, TD Ameritrade, and says, I'd like to use some of my soft dollar compensation to pay for a seminar to help prepare these people to pass their 65. So, the 65 seminar is not being paid for by the investment advisor. It's being paid by TD Ameritrade using soft dollars. Again, it's not the investment advisor that's going to write the check. It's TD Ameritrade. Now, ultimately, what they test you on, this is very testable, is what a broker dealer can't pay for. And what the broker dealer can't pay for is rent, can't pay for furniture, and can't pay for travel. In this example I'm giving you, the investment advisory firm is in La Jolla, and we would much rather be having this seminar in La Jolla in a nice fancy hotel where they're bringing in breakfast and lunch and dinner, but instead we're in the middle of snow in Salt Lake City. And the reason we're in Salt Lake City is because TD Ameritrade cannot pay to fly all of us, to La Jolla. Oh well, right? All right, so we talked about disclosure of compensation. Sunlight's the best disinfectant again. We talked about disclosing any compensation we receive, any incentives from getting people involved on the, outside of that investment advisory relationship as an agent of the insurance company or as an associated person, the broker dealer, whatever the case may be. Now, custody, client customer funds and securities. If the investment advisory firm is going to have custody of funds and securities, if they're going to have a custody of that, there's going to be a net worth requirement. So, there's a net worth requirement where I have no custody, but I have discretion. I have trading authorization or discretion. And that's 10K if I can't, if I don't have physical custody. And if we have custody, so discretion is 10K. If custody, that's going to be 35K in net worth. And we're allowed to use a surety bond instead if you would do that. Now, on the broker dealer side, we don't need to worry about this at all because broker dealers have separate net capital standards. And, the state can't impose on a broker dealer any kind of a net capital standard that's higher than its federal standard. But by the way, if we're just to have, like, for example, my investment advisory firm, I told you, we use Schwab for execution and custody of our customers' monies and securities. And all we can do in terms of deducting money is deducting our investment advisory fee. And if all I have access to is to deduct money for my investment advisory fee, I'm still a 10K investment advisory firm. But if it's actually I can withdraw monies and securities out of a customer account, that's going to be 35K. One of my favorite vignettes was a show. It was a television program. They were interviewing this rookie in the NFL, and he was traveling around town, and he met a guy in a bistro, and he said, "You got any advice for me?" And he said, "Never give your investment advisor full trading authorization." Apparently one of the guys had retired, went back to his teammates, said, if anybody understands the financial problems to being indigenous, to being a high income producing professional athlete. It's law. If you give me full trading authorization, not only can I make investments, I can also withdraw monies and securities, pay your bills for you, and you can just worry about being the best football player you can be. Uh-oh. Now, another reason that a lot of investment advisory firms would use a broker dealer, because it's just an easier thing. Because the other thing we have to be able to do if we have custody, or not, by the way, is give quarterly statements. And as you can see, broker dealers are already set up to do that. But if an investment advisory firm is going to be having custody, they're going to have quarterly statements. The state administrators may restrict your ability as an investment advisory firm to have custody, or give you a list of proper custodians. Commercial banks, for example, may be acceptable. Broker dealers may be acceptable. But assuming that you're not using an acceptable person for execution and custody, mainly custody, so I'll get rid of the word execution, custody, then that would be something that would be problematic, right? And you could expect that the state administrator in those situations might want to do a surprise audit just to make sure everything's, copacetic. All right, so discretion, I kind of hinted at this. Again, high probability about this idea of discretion. And, the way we get this right is to think about the 3 A's. But before we do that, there's a testable distinction between trading authorization, discretion, as it relates to a broker dealer versus how that relates to a investment advisory firm. So, you're not supposed to do your first trade on the BD side. Let's label that. On the BD side, you're not supposed to do account has to be approved, have the proper documentation be approved prior to the first trade. And that's a testable distinction because on the AI side, it can be up to 10 days after the first trade. So, a little different on the investment advisory side than it is on the broker dealer side about this idea of trading authorization. Now if we're going to have trading authorization, that means we can make a decision about action, asset, amount. Now, I don't need trading authorization as a broker to make a decision about time and price. Let me get a different color here. That's just called getting good execution. But if I'm a broker and I'm going to make a decision about action, whether to buy or sell, asset, which security to buy or sell, or the amount, the quantity, I need trading authorization. Now, very high probability they're going to give you a question where somebody doesn't have this third-party trading authorization. There's 2 versions of this you should be aware of on your exam. One is where the customer's executive assistant, for example, test scenario, calls me and says, he said to tell you to do this. And very testable, I say, well, no, I'm sorry, I can't accept. I understand you've been the executive assistant for 20 years, but I need to talk to the customer. The client is the one who gives me that authorization. So that's one version of where we need to understand somebody who doesn't have third-party trading authorization. Another scenario that shows up on the exam is where the customer says, Dean, let's sell 10,000 shares of GE today at whatever time and price you think looks good. And then, my heart's in the right place. And I say, oh man, I don't want to do all 10, I'll do 5. And so I sell 5. That's still a violation of this, right? So if I'm going to make a decision about, action, asset, amount, that's going to require trading authorization, right? So we just talked about that trading authorization. Now there's 2 versions of that. And I kind of hinted at that trading authorization. We said there's 2 versions, limited. Oh, I can get back again. And full. Limited trading authorization or full. Limited means I can only make investment decisions for you. Full means not only can I make investment decisions for you, as I mentioned, I can withdraw monies and securities. So that's a bigger supervisory challenge, right? And then on that limited to full, the other thing I also have is durable versus non-durable. Durable, my power of attorney survives your legal incapacitation. Incapacitation. And non-durable does not. So if you're declared mentally incompetent by court, my trading authorization ends. Prudent investor standards. We're not going to test you on what prudent men or women would do. We're going to test you on recognizing something that would not be suitable, prudent. Be careful on this one because it's in the context of an earlier discussion we had on the investment side about modern portfolio theory. So something that at first glance, you got to be careful. I call it RTFQ, read the full question. And RTFA, read the full answer set, because that's something you look at first glance might look inappropriate. If you read further in the context of a portfolio, it might be okay if it's providing, for example, negative correlation. So just be careful on that. Big time test fodder. This is worth getting a bigger annotation tool for this next one in a much bigger font. I'm going to go for that font. And every firm is required to have written supervisory procedures. Written supervisory procedures. We refer to those as the WSPs of the firm. And in the written supervisory procedures, we're going to have to, let me change the color of that. Oh, well, it looks like it's not going to let me change the color. In there, we have to have something on anti-money laundering, our AML policy and procedures. And we're going to ask everybody at the firm to read this and sign that they've read it and they understood it. So that way later on, when they say that they didn't, we can say, well, isn't this signature that you read this and you said that you understood this? So I'm going to just get one. So as part of our AML procedures, we're going to appoint an AML officer. And we're going to conduct AML tests. Make sure you know our procedures are up to snuff. We will file CTRs, currency transaction reports, for more than $10,000. I don't know if you guys remember, we filed that with FinCEN, your SIE. This is more testable in your SIE than it is your 66, but it's there. It's there. So, not as big a deal. We talked about custodies, conditions, and obligations. It's just so sad whenever there's a major horror story like Bernie Madoff or some investment advisory firm that blows up. It's usually because there was not a proper custodial location. I mean, that would be a very important thing, even for a client to ask, who has custody of my monies and securities? Now, custody conditions and obligations, one thing you have to do is inform the state administrator if you move the location of the customer securities. And that makes sense, right? If you move it from bank A to bank B or to another broker dealer, that notification is made both to the state administrator and clients. So in my example, I'm using Schwab, and if I decide to use, E-Trade, I'd have to tell you about that. We've talked about some conflicts of interest already. Those proprietary products, if you're, a agent of a life insurance company, or if there's incentives to you to get somebody involved in a particular product, or if we, are splitting commissions, we said it has to be with the appropriate party. Conflict of interest with the third-party solicitor, it's unlikely. I'm going to tell you the federally covered investment advisor is not somebody I care for because, obviously I wouldn't be working for them if I didn't. Now, criminal activities under the Uniform Securities Act. So the Uniform Securities Act. You know, I joke, unfortunately, it's not really a joke, but you have to work really hard in our business to go to jail as a broker, you know, white collar folks. So if you go to jail, boy, you must have done something really bad. And so one of the criminal activities, well, not activities, it's more about not so much criminal activities where you have the intent to defraud as it is on the test about what are the criminal penalties for those activities, right? So under the Uniform Securities Act, the penalties are up to $5,000 and 3 years in jail. And the statute of limitations on that is going to be 5 years. And then the other one that you got to be aware of on the test, and let's see if it comes in here, is I'll just put it here since this is what we're talking about already, is the Insider Trading Act of 88. You might think we had problems in 87, and you'd be correct. And one of the problems we had was, brokers thought we had a fee-based ethics system. And so they thought, well, gee, if I can, pay the fine, do the crime. And so the Insider Trading Act, again, says that if we're going to get caught doing this, the penalty is going to be 300%, and up to 20 years in jail. So 300% of the profits made or losses avoided, and up to 20 years in jail. That, again, is supposed to scare brokers. Going to jail and making new friends is something that does scare us. And again, very important, very testable. We have to have in our WSPs, our written supervisory procedures, something on insider trading. And then again, that way, if you claim you didn't know this, we said, well, isn't that your signature? That you read this and acknowledge this. Insiders are people that are in possession of material non-public information. Well, I shouldn't say in possession, they trade upon it. So material non-public information. I mean, if I knew what you knew, I wouldn't have sold you the stock, right? It drives me. I want to say people is some say, oh, it's not a victimless crime. It's a victimless crime. It's not. The person who doesn't have the information, is at a disadvantage to you. And everybody's liable. So, they give you these questions like who's in trouble? It's everybody, right? So, it's anybody who has material non-public information, then trades on it. If they leak the information, whatever. So it's not just, people who work at the company. It's not just officers, directors, and principal stockholders, because that definition was weak under 34. That was and still is the definition, but that makes it hard to convict cab drivers or newspaper reporters. And so, they went to Congress and said, can you pass a Insider Trading Act of 88, which gives us a much vaguer, broader definition of insider? And they said, certainly, that will be anyone with access to material non-public information. Fiduciaries and other ethical considerations, loan to and from customers. Now, you got to be careful on this one. An obvious violation. I say, you're so rich and I'm so poor. Can I borrow some money from you? No. So no loans to and from customers. Now, be careful. Don't be looking for tricks, but there is an exception to this. The exception, always good to have a little Latin in your hip pocket. And the Latin is bona fide. Bona fide is good faith. Bona is good and fide. Bona fide loans. That means I go get a car loan from the bank, and the bank happens to be a client of the investment advisory firm. That's perfectly okay if it's a bona fide loan. That's not what we're talking about here, right? So loans to and from customers, your default should be absolutely not. Now, be careful on the sharing and profits of losses in customer accounts. Again, this is another one that's different on the BD side than it is on the investment advisory side. So, boom. Associated persons of the broker dealer can share in customer accounts with principal approval and proportionate capital. Now, this is one of those where I call it, Series 66 fantasy land. What I mean by that is, I don't know of any brokerage firm in the real world that would allow you to do this, where I come to you as my supervisor and say, oh man, the customer and I have really bonded. We've decided that we're going to open an account together and we're going to split things 50-50. My customer says, are you nuts? Or my principal says, my supervisor says, are you nuts? Absolutely not. But the test answer is yes, that's okay. Now, that's the only time that would be okay. This is an absolute no for the broker dealer. It's a no for the investment advisor, and it's a no for the investment advisory representative. So there's a very limited circumstance in which that is okay. Client confidentiality. Now, we're supposed to protect your information. So the SEC has what's called Regulation SP, which says we have a duty to keep proprietary confidential information we have on you, protected, because it's nobody's business but your own, right? And so we have to have, again, policies and procedures about how we're going to do this. Now, there are some exceptions to this. I am going to share, if it's a joint account, the information with whoever the joint account holder is with you, right? That's perfectly okay. And any law enforcement or court order, I'm certainly going to share. Any other time I'm going to share information, I need to have your permission. For example, I say, hey, would it be okay if I tell people I manage money for you? I'm not supposed to tell people who I'm managing money for without the client's permission. If he says, yeah, you're more than happy to chat that up. Or no, don't chat that up. My private business is my private business, right? So, with a court order, I'm going to roll over on you, right? We talked about insider trading. Selling away, high probability test question. So selling away, we have what are called improved products, things we get people involved in. And so they'll say on the test, an associated person or investment advisor representative sells an investment, gets a client involved in an investment without permission. This is a prohibited practice. So associate person, the investment advisor, associate person of the broker dealer or investment advisor get a client involved in investment not sponsored by the BD or IA without permission. This is a prohibited practice. It is known as selling away. All right, market manipulation. There's a classic, and the classic that we test you on is giving the false impression of volume. Giving the false impression of volume. No, in the old days, we would call that painting the tape. If you watch CNBC, the tape goes by, and what I would be doing is doing trades that just give the false impression of volume. And so one way I can do that is a match trade where there's no change in beneficial ownership. What that means is, I have my two laptops here, my Fidelity account on one laptop, my Schwab account on the other laptop, and I just hit the buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell. And there's no change in the beneficial ownership. That's just Dean giving the false impression of volume. Big no-no. Now, another way I might do that is a wash sale. That would be just using my own account at, Schwab instead of two accounts. I just buy and sell, buy and sell, buy and sell with myself. Again, no effective change in proportionate ownership. Now, personal securities transaction is very testable. By the way, there's other market manipulations. I'm working on an entire lecture on market manipulation. It's probably going to be total overkill because it's going to be for every kind of situation. And my challenge is I'm trying to sort it by probability in terms of all the various exams. So, capping and pegging shows up on 4s and 9s and 10s, not so much on anything else. But, I'm just going to have a whole lecture on that stuff. So, preview, I guess, preview. Very tight probability you're going to get tested on what are called access persons. An access person is someone who might have access to material non-public information. And so as an investment advisory firm, we know who these people are, who might have access to, a corporate insider's account that we're managing their money. And we're worried that perhaps they might want to shadow the trades of that person. By the way, that would be, a big no-no, but or you actually trade on material non-public information. By the way, it can be considered to be the same thing, but we want to make sure that these access persons aren't doing, stuff they're not supposed to be doing. And so what an access person is going to have to do is file quarterly transaction reports. And again, this is high probability on debrief. I can't tell you how many people get, call me and say, Dean, what is an access person? I'm not sure if it's covered in your study materials. We're agnostic on the channel about whether you're using Kaplan or Past Perfect or STC or Solomon. Did I leave anybody out? Those are all, Notman. Those are all, great study providers. I'm prejudicial. I like Kaplan, but I don't think any of those put you at risk. There are, if I didn't mention a firm, that's probably by design. So maybe I'll throw Securities Institute in there again. Jeff is a good guy. So, there are a couple that I think might put you at risk. But, I think some of them don't have this term access person in their study materials for this personal securities transaction thing. So just make sure you got that lingo down. Anyways, what they're going to do is they're going to file quarterly transactions reports with compliance. And again, that makes sense, right? So the compliance officer can see if there's any shenanigans going on. They're going to do that within 30 days of the end of the quarter. So, the thing that people tell me they see on debrief is this quarterly thing. So make sure you got that. And by the way, that would be outside securities accounts because again, some firms will allow you to have your brokerage account elsewhere. Some will not. And so you would have to make notification to the firm of any outside accounts you have. And, the firm could restrict that activity or restrict that and say, no, you're going to have your account here. But it makes sense that there's going to be notification of outside brokerage accounts. We get too in the weeds about as much as we do on other securities tests. So the initial holdings, and then I just told you the quarterly reports. Pay to play, very testable. The SEC, I'm not supposed to, I'm supposed to earn the business the old fashioned way and work for it. I'm not supposed to, public employee retirement system of California is, $400-500 billion in assets under management. And so I think, well, I know how I can get that account or get some of that money. I'll just hire the guy who used to work for PERS. He can come to my firm, and then he'll be calling on his buddies. We probably can win some business that way. So if we hire somebody from a potential investment advisory client, they're going to be restricted from soliciting your former, client, from soliciting their former employer for 2 years. And then campaign contributions. There's a distinction about whether I can vote for you or not. If I can vote for the campaign, the politician, it's going to be $350. And if I can't vote, so my maximum is $350. And if I can't vote, my maximum is going to be $150. So cannot vote. Due diligence, excessive trading is very testable. Due diligence means you're just supposed to make sure all the information you have is, truthful and relevant, and, compliance would be held accountable if they didn't use a reasonable amount of due diligence to make sure all this stuff is, being done. It's all copacetic, right? Excessive trading has its own name, and that's called churning. And that's a big no. There's no real hard and fast definition of churning. It's kind of like what the Supreme Court said about pornography. They said, we don't have a definition. We just know it when we see it. And that's kind of the same here in terms of the 66. We just know it when we see it, right? Again, we talked about this already. Good news, I can actually, let me scroll down here. It looks like my written procedures. I'm just making it so you can see it. There we go again. So those written supervisory procedures are going to have something on cybersecurity, right? To make sure we're protecting in terms of privacy, we're trying to protect against identity theft. How do we verify customers? Let me again put that in a different color. Do we use Duo? Do we use, biometrics? Do we use, what do we do, right? In terms of making sure we ask what your, first dog was, or, your first elementary school, whatever. But we, obviously biometrics would be more important. If we do suffer an attack, then we got to, plug the gap. It means it's embarrassing if we actually have a cybersecurity event and then we, have the same event again. It always astounds me how many people pick the wrong firms to do this with, because there are certain firms that are really more squared away than others in terms of their cybersecurity. So sometimes I think they pick the wrong person. This would include how we back up data. Do we encrypt data? No, if we back it up, do we have somewhere where if we suffer like ransomware, do we have in the basement maybe some servers that are not hooked up to the internet? So clean backup so we can hit the button and repopulate everything with what we know would be clean, uninfected information. And as we said, you have a responsibility to protect this stuff. We already talked about regulation SP. Data protection, particularly as it relates to devices, for example. Are you going to be using or let people use their own devices? I put on the Reddit, we have a Reddit discussion board called R66. And I just posted on there the SEC, who just fined some investment advisory firms for not having the proper cybersecurity. And somebody asked me, well, gee, do you have a sample question? I said, well, I guess I can, I think I'm doing enough pro bono, but, maybe I'll dream up a couple practice questions based on this. Again, on debrief, I haven't had people tell me this is anything that's been problematic. I mean, in this area, for example, I have people on debrief saying, oh, that access person, what's that? I haven't had somebody say, hey, Dean, I got a cybersecurity question. I couldn't use common sense to kind of get the right answer. So, but we talked about this data protection. Are we using, for example, a virtual private network? Are we going to let people use their own laptops? We're going to hand them a laptop. Were you allowing reps to use social media? What are our procedures for that? Are they going to be allowed to use Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter? And if so, do we have the information to capture that? Okay, so subscribe, comment. I'm pretty good at responding to comments. And usually we do usually what I do is a premiere, and during the premiere, I do a live Q&A chat that runs alongside it. But it is invariably, I'm trying not to make commitments to publish things based on somebody's testing schedule. But invariably, people will say, Dean, I'm testing Monday, and I know you told me you're going to be doing some stuff on the 66, and Monday doesn't do me good for the premiere because I'm testing Friday, and I kind of feel guilty to not publish if I know there's somebody out there who thinks this might be helpful to them. So I'll probably just publish this And let me know what your thoughts are in terms of Q&A. I'm pretty good. We have a community page on the channel, and that's one way we can communicate with any questions you have. I'm pretty good. If you put a comment on the lecture, I'm pretty good at getting back to you pretty quickly on that. But if you think that we should get back to a premiere schedule of weekly or whatever, where we run that chat alongside the premiere, let me know. And then also we'll be at some point done with these test specifications. And when we are, then put in your lecture request. I already know I'm working on a practice final for the 66, and I know that people want that, and so that'll be something for sure. But if you have some other ideas, I told you I'm working on an entire unethical lecture on just unethical business practices. So if you have some ideas, send them my way as well. Okay. Hope you're finding these productive, and we're getting good. I tell you, there's 2 lectures already on the Uniform Securities Act and investment advisory and investment advisor reps that are narrative lectures, and it covers some of the test specifications that I haven't done yet. So I feel like there's not too many gaps left in what content I want to provide. And 66, I always want to refresh and give you new stuff, but we're getting to where I think there's, I don't feel guilty about the amount of content that we have there for you. Okay, until next time.